Namaste, everyone. Welcome to CoHNA Dialogues. My name is Sudha Jagannathan. I am with the Coalition of Hindus of North America. And today we are going to be talking about a movie. It's not an everyday movie. The movie name is Kashmir Files. And the tagline to that is The Right to Truth. So, to discuss the movie with me are a few guests who have seen the movie, who have some connections to the story behind the movie. So, I want to welcome our guests. But before that, I first of all want to thank the producers, writers, directors of the movie, Vivek Agnihotri and his entire team. They produced this movie under threats, to their lives. And even with that, they went ahead and produced a movie that tells the story of what happened 32 years ago in 1990. We just passed the January 19th anniversary of that particular horrific exodus of the Kashmiris from the land of their forefathers. So, with that, let me introduce our guests to the audience. Brianna Wheatley. Thank you, Brianna, for joining us. And Brianna saw the movie, and I want to applaud her for actually going out and seeing the movie. So I want to ask you, Brianna, how did you find out about this particular premiere that was showing in December? It was in about a dozen cities across the United States. So who let you know that there was a movie happening?
So Shivani, who's also a speaker on the panel, she let us know. A few friends said, "Oh, there's this premiere going on," and I wasn't sure what to expect from it. We kind of got a brief synopsis of what the movie would be about, but I thought, you know what, I'll go see the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and did you know anything about Kashmir? You said Shivani was a friend. So did you know that Shivani came from Kashmir in India?
I didn't know too much, but Shivani has mentioned it to us from time to time, but I didn't really know any detail about the background or what had happened.
Okay, so what did you expect showing up at the movie theater? What were your expectations?
I wasn't I wasn't too sure what to expect, honestly. I wasn't really sure if it was going to be set up kind of like a documentary or if it was going to be a movie in the way that it was. So I was just kind of interested to see like how it was going to work out, but I wasn't really too sure what to expect.
Okay, all right. And what did you think at the end of the movie as you were walking out?
At the end, I was I I don't know. I felt like really shocked about it. And I think the other great part was the premiere that I got to attend. Afterwards, there was kind of a discussion between the audience members and kind of the behind the scenes, the cast and the creators for the movie, and that I think added some weight to it too. Just hearing people like share their personal experiences, share how they personally connected to the movie. So afterwards, I felt like, oh, what? I think I went home and I just thought about the movie for like the next 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, and I know you did a video that we all got to see, and I have to say, you said some very powerful statements that growing up in the United States, going to the schools here, you had never heard of this kind of an atrocity that happened to the Indian Hindus. So, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I feel like going through school, we kind of have main marks that we hit, like learning through history, things that I guess they feel like they need to touch on. But I feel like there's so much that has happened that we didn't learn about. So when I was watching the movie, I remember something that was pretty powerful to me was at the end that Swapna said that this movie is not 100% true. It's 1,000% true that this is what happened. This, like, the history behind it, it is true. And seeing it, it was the genocide was so horrific that I was wondering, why is this something that we were never taught about? And then kind of relating to it to a point where with slavery, and going through the civil rights movement and everything from a Black perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
I could relate somewhat in that aspect, but wondering why was this something we were never taught about, and then feeling a bit worse because like I'm an adult. I could have gone on my own and figured this out, but I can admit that was ignorant in that aspect and wondering like why is this something that I just haven't come across or researched about on my own. So it was kind of like shocking, but it was the shock that I needed to experience.
Thank you. Actually, for you to go explore on your own, it needs a trigger, right? Now that you've seen the movie, you can understand more. I come from India. I'm not a Kashmiri. I come from the exact opposite end of India. And I knew about Kashmir, but I did not understand the scope of the horrors. And this was not the first time that a genocide and an exodus happened. I believe this was the seventh one. And so you're not alone. Our own people don't know. So the movie, its intent is to raise awareness of this particular incident, not only amongst the Kashmiri community, but the larger Indian community, but also the community of the entire globe, right? I mean, it's a story that has to be told. And when you mention about the African American history, think about how hard your leaders had to fight to claim that story, right? And to tell that story. And even now, there is so much pushback against that story when people say slavery was a good thing. And you kind of like, what? Where does that come from? And that is so many years after your leaders and the entire community. So we are hoping we can build a moment like that, Brianna. So have you talked to your family and friends about the movie and would you encourage all of them to go out and see the movie?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially because I'm sure a lot of people come from the same perspective as me that we just don't know what happened, and I think it's important for people to go and see the movie because it was very like sad emotional movie, and it had that impact of feeling like oh wow, like and it wasn't even too long ago. It was within the
Yeah.
last 30, 40, 50 years, and that's I think the scariest part, that it's so recent, and from the perspective of when the movie took place, and just wondering how we wouldn't have known about it. So I think it is important for people to go see. I'll definitely encourage my family and friends to go check it out. I will probably watch it again, and then try to go along and do more research about it on my own. And I'm kind of hoping that the movie itself like triggers people. How you said that they need a trigger point to go research, that maybe people will make their own works and make their own videos and post about the history behind it, like a lot of detail about what happened, and that it kind of starts the conversation on a wider scale and doesn't make it this taboo thing that isn't really talked about, or if people just don't know and don't talk about it.
Yeah. A lot of times there are groups that silence, people who want to tell the story. And that is a really dangerous part, because when you silence history, uh, it happens again. And the positive thing is that truth always comes out, right?
Yeah.
You cannot stop that. So the fact that this movie is out here, it gives a record of, it captures the stories of, let's say, the last survivors, maybe as people are aging, and that was a very important thing to do. Now, Brianna, I don't know if you are a writer or you gave a powerful testimony on video. Thank you. But if you are a writer, we would love to have you write about your experience. But just a thought, no pressure. But the point is that young people writing about these things carry a lot of weight, especially among other young people. So thank you, Brianna. Just hang in there. I'm going to come back to you after I do the rounds with the other guests. So hang in there. I think we'll go to Shivani next. Thank you, Brianna. So, Shivani, thank you for joining today's call. And to the audience, I would say the next three guests all share the last name, but let me assure you, not all of them are related. It just happens to be a name that seems to be very popular. So, Shivani, I know you are a Kashmiri American, and you grew up in a family that has history, right? And did you hear about this history, the story of your family as you were growing up?
Um, growing up, not really. I think when I could really remember this story starting to come up, it was just like a few years ago, within the last like 4 or 5 years, I would say, did these conversations really start happening. I think, growing up, my parents would talk about Kashmir and how beautiful it was, and we would go to like the KOA camps in the summer, and they would talk about their memories of just living in Kashmir. But the actual events of what happened was just never discussed. And I think what kind of started this conversation was this movie, and was like the different things that have been happening in the last few years socially and politically have started kind of bringing up the conversation in our community, which really brought it up in our family as well. So it was a very recent conversation for us.
I see. Okay. I'm glad the movie is a trigger for conversations within families. I think it's very important to keep I'm not just saying the just the horrors, but the power of what happened, right? How it's impacted the entire community. I think it's important to say the story. I always think, even let's say about 800 years ago, Kashmir was a land with 100% Hindus. And today, the Valley of Kashmir has 2% Hindus. I mean, it's sort of unfathomable for me that that has happened. So it is important to keep the story alive. Have you been to Kashmir?
I have not. I don't know if it's something I'm going to be able to do, but I've always wanted to do that. I know, just like hearing the stories about, my parents' home, and they've described their childhood homes in such detail, and like just the beauty of the area and things like that. Like it would be something that I would love to be able to do, but I've never gotten to do.
I would like to go. Maybe I can go with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think seeing the movie, if we have a chance, if things are at a state in Kashmir that tourists are allowed to come, I think we all going and experiencing the place. I think all of that builds back uh, a sense of, I would say, closure. You know, but I think a real closure would be if more Hindus can go back and increase the diversity from 2% to something higher. I would definitely love to see that. So, what way your expectations going to see the movie?
You know, it's funny because my mom was working so closely with the development of this movie, and so I think I had the unique experience of having a little bit of like glimpses into kind of how the movie came to be. Um, but in the end, I didn't know like how really it was going to come together. I didn't know how much of our family story was going to be shown. I didn't know like kind of like similar to what Brianna said, I didn't know if it was going to be like a documentary style or more of like a narrative, or just like, how it was going to really be presented. And so just those little details, I really wasn't sure like what it was going to be about in that way. I obviously knew it was going to be a really heavy story because I just kind of knew on that end. Um, it's not an easy story to kind of listen to. So if it was going to be portrayed accurately and truly, in which it was, like these were very accurate stories, I knew it was going to be hard to watch. And so I kind of went in prepared, knowing like, oh, it's not just a movie that, you go see with your friends, like on a random Saturday, like a comedy or something. Like it was like an event that I had to like kind of prepare myself for. And I went with some of my family, so my aunt and my uncle. And so like also kind of preparing myself for like how it would impact them, because they had more like direct connections to some of the stories. And
Yeah.
so just wanting to be like cognizant of kind of how the reactions of the audience would be, and like what it might trigger for the people watching it. So that's what I was kind of going in expecting, really.
Okay. And after the movie, what was your reaction?
Yeah, it really hit me a lot harder than I thought it was going to. Because like I said, it hadn't been a story I had been super familiar with for so long. And it was a more recent story. They did at one point, mention a little bit of my like family story in there, and that I remember like watching that scene and being like, wow, I like had a more emotional reaction than I figured. And then at the end, seeing like the other Kashmiri Hindus in the audience, how like visceral of a reaction they were having, that was really, really impactful for me. Just seeing like, this isn't just this isn't like a very distant event that happened. Like this was very, very connected to the people that are present in our lives right now. And just the weight that holds was like really apparent in that moment. And being able to kind of hear the people in the audience just talk about their reactions, like at the end when they kind of did some Q&A. Yeah, it was just very raw and emotional.
Yeah. Did you have conversation with your aunt and uncle after the movie?
A little bit. I think it was just so fresh that I think it was really hard to talk about it. But we did, kind of just say like, oh, my aunt was saying like, I remember hearing that story like when it actually happened, and now like seeing it on a screen like that, like just like seeing that kind of her talk about that was really interesting. And it just goes to show like how true the stories are, like how based in fact they are, because and how well the producers and writers and everyone did their research to kind of accurately portray these stories and give the honor to the families that they're presenting on the screen.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to talk to Swapna in a bit about how the story collection happened. But you're going to encourage your friends and family to go see the movie when it releases, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've already started, telling everyone and that I know, and I think it's the responses I've been hearing from like my friends and people in the community, like just their interest in wanting to like come and support this movie, and just similar to like what Brianna said, like them just having had no idea that this was even a thing that happened, and the shock of that. And just I think that that's very clear for a lot of people, that it really is just like people don't know.
Yeah.
Not that they don't care, they just don't know. And so now that they're starting to know a little bit more about it, like it's people want to show up and they want to support it. And so I'm going to continue to definitely advertise it and spread that.
The trailers of the movie itself so powerful. The main characters in the trailers. So I've already sent them, I've alerted my Congress member and my senators about the movie. And when it opens, I think if it opens where I live, I definitely want to take my political leaders and some other folks from the community to go see the movie, because none of them know what happens. All they know is the general narrative out there, and which is so wrong. And I would like them to take the time to go see the movie and understand there is a whole different side and aspect to it. And I think that is very powerfully done in the movie. So thank you, Shivani. I will come back to you once we do the rounds again. And so proud of you, articulating about your own, culture and history. So thank you. Stay tuned there. So we'll go to Rohit. Rohit. Hey, welcome, Rohit. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to tell the audience, Rohit has joined us in several campaigns already. Last year, we had a conversation with high school youth Democrat group that was going to take action on a Kashmir issue following the wrong narrative. And because of Rohit and a few other young members of the community, with just 1 hour conversation, that whole plan was squashed because um, the school community understood, that they were on a completely wrong path. So thank you for your voice, Rohit, and also congratulations on getting your story published in India Current. So folks, on our chat, we have posted his story, and thank you to Pushpita Prasad at CoHNA for working with Rohit. So Rohit, we want more stories. And also from Shivani and Brianna and anyone you can encourage to get stories out there. See, because I'm thinking the movie is one step, right? The conversations after that has to continue to build momentum and to create a movement that builds awareness, right? So we cannot stop with one story, one movie. We have to keep going. So tell me, I know I read your very powerful story, but I want you to share that with the audience. You are an activist, so you know about Kashmir and what happened there and your family's, connections to that. With all of that, what were you expecting going into the movie?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, thank you, Sudhaji, for hosting this, and thank you, Kona, for having me here. When I was expecting to watch this movie, I did not have too high of expectations, actually, because there were previous efforts to portray the plight of the Kashmiri Hindus in media, such as the movie Shikara, or other ways to portray this. And in my opinion, they weren't up to par. I didn't feel like they were presentable for our narrative and didn't really provide the correct facts. But when I got out of the movie, it was a completely different mindset of mine. I did not expect the Kashmir Files to have been so articulate with the details, with the storyline, the way they weaved in a proper movie plot with quite literally every fact that is there, and reach out to everyone's heart, whether it be Hindu or other parts of India or anything. It was just a beautiful movie overall.
Were you part of the conversations when, let's say, Vivek ji and Pallavi ji collected the stories? Did they collect from your family also?
Yeah, they did actually. Vivek ji and his team and Pallavi ji, they all actually, one day, it was November 9th in 2019. Yeah, that was the day after my birthday, actually. So they came and they came over to our house because my mom is a direct victim of the exodus. Her father was brutally murdered in Kashmir. And so they wanted to reach out to her and understand what happened from her perspective and hear about what happened to her father. And so they actually interviewed my mom and they talked to my father, my sister, and I about our vision, our experiences, and we got to treat them to Kashmiri food as well. So they got to see how well we cook up in the north, and it was great. But talking to them, and it was a great opportunity for my mom to essentially talk about what had happened to her.
So when you went to see the movie, I think you went with your parents, right?
Right, I did.
Did your parents feel that the movie stayed very much to the truth and the facts and the incidents that your mom and dad may have shared with them?
Right. So both my parents actually had different experiences. My mom, like I said, she had seen so much. For her, this movie was quite literally reliving the past. I've always seen my mom as a strong figure. I'm the biggest mama's boy you can imagine, and seeing her in pain really made me in pain, because the whole movie she was just constantly weeping because every single scene to her was something that she had seen, something that she had heard of, something that she had just maybe in the news read about, because this is reality. And she was just dumbfounded for the rest of the whole time because what happened on screen happened in real life. My father, he was able to watch me the first 15 minutes, and he had seen some parts of it, and his own family in India were in Kashmir were preparing to leave because they couldn't um, bear the thought of losing lives. And my father, he was, after 15 minutes, he realized he probably couldn't finish the movie because this is too much to handle. And it was really like he was back in Kashmir in 1989, 1990. And so he actually had to leave the theater. So they just left me, my sister, and my mom, and we had to watch it.
No, it's very much like a PTSD, right? You experience that and then you shut off. that you put it into a compartment, lock it away, and the movie and telling your story unlocks it and gives it a chance to air out. But for some people like your dad, it probably will take longer, right? But he must be very proud of you for fighting for the cause and writing about it and seeing the movie. And I think, that's how we need to keep it alive, and we need to help, your family members and others who suffered from, to come to terms with it, right? Yeah. So, did you encourage your friends also to go see the movie?
Oh, definitely. I'm really thankful for the opportunities I've been given to even write about it in the first place. Thank you to Pushpataji for helping me write and produce a great article through with CoHNA and through My India Makers, which is another article I've written, and India Currents. So I was really thankful for those opportunities, which is a great way to essentially, I would say, cause a slope, because the Kashmir Files is a great movie in a sense that it would start a new movement that we could talk about more experiences and have more Kashmiri Hindus and other Hindus talk about their plights. And I've definitely been able to tell my friends about it. And whenever it releases, I'll be more than happy to try and maybe have my own screening at my house or have other friends to come over.
Yeah, and include your lawmakers, please. They don't know the story, right? So that's why when they say we stand with Kashmir, I'm not sure what they mean by that.
Right.
They don't know what they're standing with. So what other things are you doing with your activism to help continue to tell the story, Rohit? Share some of that with us.
Sure. So I'm constantly making some sort of tweet or post on Instagram or any sort of social media that I can to bring forth this narrative, because there's nothing else we can do nowadays besides talk about it. It doesn't matter who's trying to silence us. It doesn't matter who's trying their hardest to keep our narrative down, but it's because the truth is bitter. And I am constantly finding ways to post about it, regardless of how many times I say the same thing. And if it seems like I'm saying the same thing, then that's okay, because I would rather talk about it than leave it under the dust. And it's been typically me. I've been able to make multiple threads on Twitter, essentially talking about the story. On Instagram, I've been able to post some posts about it. I haven't been able to do so much on Facebook or Reddit or any sort of things, but I've been trying my best to reach out to other organizations. Like I said, CoHNA is also one organization that I've been thankful for attending panels in. There are other organizations that, like KOA, that really try their hardest to bring forward a narrative that we have, and it's really nice to take forward in these endeavors.
I'm just hoping, last year I think I listened to a panel. I think you may have been on it, and some of the conversation was that when you try to talk about it on college campuses, you get shut down, right? I'm hoping after this movie you can actually build a support group on campuses to claim your story and stand with it, right? You shouldn't be denied that opportunity. So I'm hoping that that happens.
Right.
So thank you.
This definitely woke me up for sure. I'm more than thankful for this movie.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping that Vivekji comes out with more powerful stories. I think he's a very powerful storyteller.
Yes.
And so this was a very much a badly needed telling of a great story, so silent, right? And so I am hoping he'll have some of the tricks up his sleeve to kind of wake up the Hindus around the globe, not just in India, Hindus around the globe, to know what is coming. I come from Kerala, which is often called the next Kashmir in the making.
Right.
And when I saw the movie, I was talking to my young Indian American who went with me, and I told her this is what is happening in Kerala also. And so anyway, my point is that it touches at many, many, many levels. So
right.
Anyway, keep up your storytelling, your powerfully standing up for your culture and faith and all of that. And we'll come back to you, Rohit. Hang in there. We'll go to Swapna. Hey, namaste, Swapna. Thank you so much for joining. For those of you who don't know Swapna Raina, she is an activist, Kashmiri Pandit activist. She's been one for a long time. She goes to, the capital. She's an activist in the community. She helps the Kashmiri refugees, right, Swapna, who are still in refugee camps, maybe to some extent. and the encouraging arts and crafts of Kashmir. So, Sapna, give us a little bit about your background before we go.
Sure. Namaskar, everybody. First of all, big thank you to CoHNA for giving us an opportunity, a platform to bring our story to the wider audience globally. I would say that I'm just a volunteer who is trying to counter the misinformation and false narratives out there. Ever since this happened three decades back, 1990, I have been in some form or shape involved with it, be it just being there as a support system, be it if I had a chance to speak up and speak my, the truth and my heart out, I have done that. On the culture side, I'm also a volunteer on Kosher Rag program. It's a not-for-profit, and it is basically where we support the underserved artists from our community. Somebody maybe in the camp who may not have the opportunities, the privileges to kind of showcase their talent. And in this stride, we are trying to preserve our culture, preserve our heritage, and bring it forward. That is who I am. I just talk about it all the time. And thank you so much, CoHNA, for always being there and speaking up for us and for everybody, no matter what the ethnic background is. What I love about CoHNA is, of course, it's a coalition of Hindus in North America, but wherever there is injustice, we speak up. So kudos to you all, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
So tell me a little bit. I think there are people in the audience too who want to hear a little bit about the making of the movie. If you could talk about that.
Sure, something very different, and we have all, pretty much everybody has touched on this point. This is just not a movie. This is true, stark, naked, painful facts. That was an incident in our lives, in the Kashmiri Pandit community. These were beautifully twined together. The threads were beautifully woven, and the result was an exceptionally good movie, The Kashmir Files. It took a lot of sweat, a lot of time on part of Vivekji and Pallaviji. So back to 2019 that Rohit mentioned, that is where our collaboration or our support or our working with the Kashmir Files team that ended in the culmination and the pre-release started. I was contacted by the Kashmir Files team, and literally Vivekji and Pallaviji, we told them we can come somewhere. They wanted to hear from us, right? They wanted to hear from the first-hand victims who had an immediate person, the relation, somebody in their family who fell to the insane killing, because of the faith that they had and because of their religion. So we said we can come somewhere to facilitate the conversations, but how it started, that's where I'm trying to come to, is Vivekji and Pallaviji traveled across, I lost count of how many cities and continents, but they went to each and every victim's home. And like Rohit said, and Shivani also mentioned it, everybody just poured their hearts out to them. It was like it was a bubble that was waiting to be, pricked, and it burst. And everybody just was very honest and spoke about it. And I've had a lot of people make a comment or question, say, how did this happen? How could you guys talk about it? The key difference here was an amazing team or amazing human beings who empathized with us. Their empathy took it to the next level. They came to our homes and they didn't ask us how. They didn't ask us why. They didn't ask us who. They just asked us, just tell us your story. They cried with us. They heard us. They had the expressionless faces. They had the shocked faces. They lived it with us. So that connection took it to the next level. It was an amazing feat that they accomplished. That is how the story and the shooting of Kashmir Files went. There's a lot of research, documentation, and fact-finding collection went into the making of Kashmir Files.
and it comes through. They kind of made it seamless, right? All of those incidents, and I know you have shared with me the incidents in your family in Kashmir, and they kind of wove all of that into one story, and it was very powerful, Swapna, for me and Sonia, the young woman I went with, and we kept on saying, "Oh my God, this is so disturbing," and it was, but it was also very jarring. Kind of gave us. I don't know how to express, but I might find the courage to go back and see it again when the movie releases. So, when you went to see the movie, Swapna, what did you think? What was your impression from having told the story? Expectations? What was it that you felt?
I I had no doubt in the capability of Vivek ji and Pallavi ji, how they would bring this in front of the audience. But I was questioning and I had doubt about the immense amount of information that they had collected, the stories. And I went to watch the movie, same like other speakers before me have said, I didn't know what to expect. It is so much heartbreaking, raw incidents that had happened in our lives, right? So it's like, and they had talked to so many of us. I wasn't sure how it's going to unfold on the big screen.
Mhm.
I was trying to figure out, we are saying this is a Bollywood movie. We need more people to watch it. But will it be of the same caliber as a Bollywood movie where it would interest audience to come and see it? And at the same time, they will see a story which is, like I said, 1,000% true. It's not romanticizing Kashmir like we have always seen, like there are in the valley, in the Dal Lake, in the Shikaras, there's Kashmir is being portrayed as somewhere where from like 50s, 60s movies in Bollywood. Kashmir is where everybody used to go for shooting.
Yes.
The songs with the beautiful flowers and the lakes and stuff. So I wasn't sure what and how it would unfold in front of my eyes and still keep the facts, the crux of the story intact and not diluted. And kudos to them. They for sure did not disappoint me. They did not. I was blown away with what I saw.
They
Amazing.
told a modern story,
Yeah, they did.
in the sense of, like you said, not the 50s and 60s, and not, yeah, it is a 1990s story, but it was the story of the people, not just the land, right? And I think that made it a big difference in how I saw it, how I felt about it, seeing in the audience.
So yeah, without because I just want to not be what's they call the spoiler alert or something. I don't want to talk about the real story, but you're right. This movie was a movie which was depicting and which was unfolding the actual facts that happened to Kashmiri Pandits, the genocide, their massacres. But at the same time, you saw it too, Sudhaji. So it was so beautifully done. It did not attack anybody without a rhyme or reason. It was just pure facts, incidents from one to another to another to another. It talked about the wealth, the cultural wealth, heritage of Kashmir. A lot of people, very important for everybody to know what Kashmir really is and was. How culturally rich we were there, and now it's all banned. There are no theaters there, no songs. So where have we come from where we actually were? um, and the impact, I'll tell you, my dad, he's 80 plus. He sat in a seat like 2 or 3 seats to my right, and I could feel it. There was not a single dry eye in the audience. I could hear sobs. I could see people dashing out of the theater because they could not control their sobs. And I could hear my dad 3 seats away. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I know this is this person's story. Yeah. This time I was posted here. So what I'm trying to say here is somebody who has seen that and lived through it and can relate to it and can assign a name, a time, and a place to it, how much more validity do you need to confirm that this is fact? And I had no heart to tell my dad, Dad, you can't speak up too loud. It was
Yeah.
everybody's emotions were coming out. There were no boundaries. They were just out there, Sutaji.
Yeah. That was, I think, his moment to kind of get it out of his system, right? I would say getting it out of the system with a sense of gratitude for the story being told, right? And when you talk about telling the story without bad mouthing anyone else, I have to tell you, I do listen to Vivek Agnihotriji's speeches, particularly the one at Capitol Hill. So I am going to ask everyone in the audience, please go listen to his YouTube speech. It is so powerful when he talks about Kashmir's relevance to today from a civilizational point of view. All of the things we talk about today in today's world, tolerance, acceptance, and then how he talks about othering, uh, I mean, he's so articulate. And I think that's what we all have to learn, how to talk about our stories in positive ways, right? And I think he does an amazing job of it. So I do listen to it a couple of times so I can have that kind of sink in my head too. So to everyone in the audience, I'm going to ask you, check out the Vivek Agnihotriji's speeches on YouTube. Check out the article written by Rohit, and also the CoHNA, events we have done, and many others have done Kashmir events. And I think that would be good background research before you go see the movie. And everyone, no excuses, you have to go see the movie. So let's get to that, Swapna. What is the plan for the release of the movie? It's so disappointing it did not happen on January 26th.
We've been very closely involved. So 26th of January came with mixed feelings for Kashmir Files team. Mixed feelings because the movie was not released and it was not available for much awaited movie. It was not available for everybody to go and watch. But Sudaji, Kashmir Files did create a history. On 25th and 26th of January, I don't know if you saw that or if the audience here did see that, Kashmir Files movie trailer played on Times Square every 6 to 8 minutes on 26th and 26th of January. So that was absolutely an historic, overwhelming moment for the Kashmir Files, for the Bollywood fraternity, for the Kashmiri Pandits, and for every human being who is compassionate and who still has that humanity in them to see how where it has been, we're talking about it. And another historic moment was, if you pay close attention, I think, I don't recall anywhere in the United States where the entire map of Kashmir is shown, not cut in pieces. If you go Google Kashmir Files and Times Square, you will see the map of Kashmir as is the complete map of Kashmir. That also brought a lot of, aha moment for me just to see it playing there. And it's just very powerful. And the theme song, Hum Dekhenge. So I urge everybody to let's go and watch it. Hum Dekhenge. It's like we will see for people who don't understand Hindi. So yeah, it's a must-watch movie.
Yeah. So at this time, is there any indication of when?
So I was coming to that. So the 26th of January didn't happen because of the third wave of COVID, right? So theaters were shut down in India, and now they recently started reopening with 50% capacity. Matter of fact, had another online virtual conversation with Vivek ji and Pallavi ji just this morning at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, and what we found out from them is pretty soon they will be announcing it, but it is all directly dependent on how and when the theaters will be able to open, with full capacity and everywhere. Like we know previously, like Maharashtra and Delhi were the hardest hit, and that's where majority of our audiences will come from. And I know there are a lot of questions in the, I think in the comment section, will it be available on the OTT platforms? Yes, at a later date, but not immediately or initially. The plan definitely, we need to reach wider audiences, every nook and corner that we possibly can, not only in India, but globally. And will be released in theaters. And after that, at some point in time, it will be released on OTT as well.
Mhm.
So please stay tuned.
Yeah. No, if you think the larger community need to write to Netflix or Amazon Prime and encourage them, let us know. We will take directions from you.
Maybe after it's released, because we really want it to go to wider audience, right? So not everybody, even though we are here, do have access, and the goal is to reach every nook and corner. So we definitely want it to be released in the theater, and then we take it to the next level.
Yeah, no. I'm hoping this is not the first and the last of the Kashmir storytelling. Okay, I'm hoping that actually I would say maybe Vivek ji has encouraged younger people to take up the mantle, because 32 years is not so long. I come from a land where 100 years ago genocide and a massacre happened. We are trying to remember it, even though there's a lot of burying in the sand that has happened. So I think it's very important to continue the storytelling. And because, Swapna, it's not just that in Kashmir the Hindus are now 2%. The neighbors of India, right, where there was significant populations of Hindus, are now decimated. So we are seeing actually a trend of how the attacks and the elimination of Hindus are happening. And it happened in Kashmir wave after wave. And at that time, we didn't have these tools of like social media, storytelling. So we have to actually shine a bigger light on Kashmir. And so, I don't have to be a Kashmiri, but I want to support Kashmir. I want to go visit Kashmir. It is my land too, right? So, and the larger community, the world is a small place. And when history and civilization and culture comes from a place like Kashmir, it is everybody's land. We say that Hinduism is the mother of religions. And if the mother of religions had a start in Kashmir, oh my God, we have to go pay our obeisance in Kashmir. So,
Absolutely. And it's not about just the motherland. It's about attack on humanity. It's about attack on killing people based on the religion that they follow, their faith. It's just all is so wrong. And then when we talk about getting wider audience, have more and more people talk about it, equally important that it's just not Indians, it's just not Kashmiris, right? It has to go out of our comfort zone. It has to go out of the box. It has to go out globally. It has to become a conversation topic, everyday conversation topic globally at everybody's dining table. And in an attempt to do that, Sudhaji, actually, when we had the pre-screening in DC area on December 3rd, we had a lot of office bearers in the audience. Few names: Katie from Howard County office, then Alan Kittleman is the ex-Maryland senator. He was there too, and he actually was kind enough to record a video with us and say the same thing. What Brianna said, it's not that far back, right? 3 decades. It's like 32 years exactly to this point. Why have we not been talking about it, right? It is something that everybody should know about. So yeah, as a Kashmiri, as somebody who's been very closely involved with Kashmir files, I don't know if will have this question or not. My urge, my request, my humble request to everybody watching us live today, first of all, thank you for joining us. And everybody who will be watching the recording, please go watch Kashmir Files. Please talk about it. Please make it a, don't shy away from the conversation, because the problem here is twofold. One, either nobody knows about it, or people who know about Kashmiri or Kashmir or Kashmiri pundits don't know the right information. And guess what? Both are very detrimental, right? So one, when there's a silent majority, that's wrong. And then when there's misinformation, that's equally dangerous. So let's all get together, use our social media platforms. Let's just engage in that and get the word out. All of us, let's join hands. Like Vivek ji said, making the movie was a divine intervention, was a call from somewhere that it somewhere clicked that Pallavi and Vivek had to make this movie. And even I don't know where you watched the movie, Sudhaji, and if they made this comment, but in DC they said, we have done our job. We're done. We put in our heart and soul, and with full honesty, we made this movie. Now it's your movie. It's for you to take it to where you want it to go. It's now for you to decide what information it is going to spread globally and how you want that happen. It's no longer Vivek's, it's no longer I Am Buddha, it's no longer Pallavi, it's no longer Kashmir Files. It's the people's moment. So please, let's join hands.
Yeah, I know. In one of the speeches, he said exactly the same thing. He said, I've done my job. What will you do? What is your job? So that's a question to the audience and anyone else who watches the YouTube later. How will you do justice? How will you tell the truth and demand justice? What is your next action? Right? Seeing the movie is one way, and then inviting your larger community and your politicians and political leaders to come and see the movie with you and maybe have a conversation. And the conversation can invite someone like Swapna ji, to it, to kind of explain maybe some of the background and things like that. That is how we keep the story alive. We don't want this movie to be just a one-time wonder. We want this to be a multi-year, part of a long saga of wonders where we change the tide of history. I think that's what we want. So with that, Swapna, thank you so much. Let's bring everybody back. And I just want to see if we have questions. And I was looking at the chat while everybody else comes. Brianna and Rohit and Shivani also.
There were a few questions about the release, and I think we addressed that. And there's a question about, if you're okay with me taking that, Sudhaji, there's a question on, are we working on English dubbing? So I don't have privy to that information, but let me tell you, there are subtitles in there. And if Brianna saw that movie and you could understand it, who does not know a single word of Hindi or Kashmiri, I think you'll be okay going and watching it and not miss the essence and the message of the movie. And there were some questions around the release date. Is there a way to get information of release dates and locations? It's not out yet. It's dependent on the COVID situation and about the reopening of the theaters. So once we have it, be assured that social media will be blasted with all the information. Look out for I Am Buddha on Twitter. Look out for GKPD Global. Look out for Rohit. Look out for Swapna. Look out for Vivek Agnihotri. There are so many foot soldiers out there. We need more and more people to join us. So there will be a lot of communication on that once the release of the movie, the release date is announced.
Yeah, I'm hoping the movie does get released. And I understand the COVID situation because we want the theaters to be packed. So let's wait for it. So Sujay, the question about online, it's not available. It's going to release in theaters first. And then at some point, it might get onto the online platform. So just when it opens in your area, please go see it. And to everyone, all of you, thank you so much for joining CoHNA. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Continue to do that. And I know Rohit and Sopana will be continuing their activist roles. And Brianna, thank you so much for watching the movie. And when the movie opens, we look forward to hearing from you what your friends and family, after seeing the movie have to say. And Shivani too. Maybe you and I can go visit Kashmir one day. That's one of my goals. So with that, I don't see any other questions. Everyone, I think, was participants were all people who had seen the movie, and really it's a double thumbs up. So thank you very much. We'll all go see the movie. And so with that, I'm going to conclude the show. Really, thank you for showing up and sharing your thoughts and encouraging everybody to continue this storytelling. Yes, Swapna?
One question. This question from Prasad. Aside from the movie, what can folks do to help this cause? So very, very, it's a great question. So back to just take the story forward, talk about it. Don't shy away from talking about it. And for our youth, Rihanna, Shivani, Rohit, I know there's a lot of talk out there, and now you're equipped with information. Now you know the truth. Go out and research. Rohit, I know you have done that a lot, but what you can do is you are now empowered with the truth, the facts. Counter that conversation. Because what happens when somebody is lying, the lie, you keep that vicious circle, at some point it sticks to people's minds that, oh, that is a fact, when it's not. So what can we do? Please talk about it. Please bring awareness. Please go watch the movie. Please blast the social media. If you are going to watch the movie, make a commitment that you'll take at least one or two people with you, because guess what? That compounding effect will just work wonders before you and I will know.
Mm-hmm. The one other thing I wanted to say is that Brianna told that earlier. We don't learn about any of this in school, right? I'm starting to think that our community needs to take control of that in one sense, because when Shivani is in a classroom, let's say with other Indian kids and non-Indian kids, and they're teaching about world history, and this doesn't come up, you can ask, hey, I have history, I want to tell my story, just give me one session in the history class, let me tell my story. I think that's how we empower our young people to learn the story first and then tell the story in the classrooms. We have some very, very courageous high schoolers who have done that. And so I think that is something that maybe we need to encourage all of our community to do. Yeah. So
and I think another really kudos to CoHNA, right? I want our youth to know that you're not alone. Like there are a lot of organizations now who will support you. If you do not want to be the voice, right? For whatever reason, and there's nothing wrong about that, right? You don't have to be vocal all the time. If you hear about something that you know does not fit into the correct information, that you hear something that is totally misconstrued information out there, bring it to our attention, please. Let's see what we can do. Guess what? If we don't know there's something wrong out there, we cannot try to counter that. If we cannot diagnose the problem, we cannot treat it, right? And if we do not treat it, it's going to become a problem that we cannot repair. So I think that another thing that we can do is, if you hear about something that's not correct, talk to more people. And thank you for our behind the scene warriors here. You now have CoHNA's website, the link there. Do join us. Come and ask us. If you're not sure where to find some piece of information, ask. And hopefully, we'll be able to support in some form or shape. I'm just assigning myself to CoHNA team here now because of the wonderful job you guys are doing, Sudhaji.
No, thank you, Swapna. Thank you all for showing up. You took time out of your Sunday, and I know you are busy people. And thank you for telling the story. And we'll continue to look for opportunities to tell the story. It might not be very much in public sometimes, but we have always jumped at the chance to, intervene whenever intervention was required. And thank you for then, participating. So Brianna, Shivani, Rohit, and Swapna, thank you so much. Okay. And keep telling our story. Namaste to everybody.
Namaste.
Have a great day.